Welcome back. Aaron Ward will be joining us in studio after 5 o'clock. He's in for our big viewing party, which basically he put together. And look what's happened. I hope to see many of you there tomorrow night. I think our friend Alan Nichols would like to be put up in the studio in a frame. Hey, Mitch, John, and Andy, old-time hockey still rules. Slapshot Johnny Upton signed Alan Nichols number 12. Beautiful classic still from Slapshot.
Definitely has to go up on the wall.
And nobody will take it down, right? If we put it up here, because we don't have much.
I know some folks who will frame that for us. It'll be fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
It's
bolt
yours.
it down.
You take care of that. All right. Frankie Corrado standing by, very curious.
Flashed out the left leg. As here come the Canadiens over the line. Ivan Demidov down the left side. Into the Chicago zone. Demidov down low. Centers! Scores! That did not take long. Third shift in the National Hockey League, and Demidov sets it up for Newhook. Ivan Demidov is evidently on the ice. Ambitious pass from Matheson, trying to find him. Here's Demidov in front. He scores! Вот это! Первый гол в НХЛ! Добро пожаловать в Montreal! First NHL goal for Ivan Demidov! And it's 2-0 Montreal!
Wow. Frankie Corrado, welcome back. Did you teach Victor Finley Russian?
What's going on? I teach Victor nothing. He knows, I think he knows 7 or 8 languages at this point. It's unbelievable. But, wow, that was exciting.
Well, tell us exactly what was going through your mind when you saw him set up Newhook, rush down the left side, and then do it himself on the goal.
So I'm sitting there watching it at home, and, my wife and I had just battled to get the kids down for bed. And I'm like, all right, we're settling in, we're watching this, and then sure enough, it's like, oh, there he goes. He's got it, and he sets up Newhook. I'm like, same thing that Victor's thinking. That didn't take long. And then as soon as he got sprung in on that setup play, and, before he touches the puck, I'm like, yeah, he's scoring here. What an unbelievable, couple of shifts, sequences for him. And, man, you could really feel the excitement coming through the TV. The Bell Center must have been an unbelievable place to be last night.
I was in the seats. John was upstairs. It was amazing. It was all set up for a wonderful night of celebration as the Canadiens in Demidov's debut clinched their playoff spot. But the Blackhawks got in the way. How do you think they handle this with what's at stake here?
Listen, you have to find a way to bounce back and not carry the weight of the world on your shoulders as you try and clinch this playoff spot. There's been a few chances now that they've been able to or have had the chance to and haven't been able to. And now it almost feels like it's just getting heavier and heavier for them. And now you're relying on, potentially someone else losing, which, they could have taken care of their own business and been in the driver's seat and not had to do that. But I think the biggest challenge for this group right now is to show up to the rink and say, we're playing free hockey, the same kind of hockey that we played coming off Christmas break and the same hockey that we played coming off the Four Nations break, not the hockey where it feels like you're walking a tightrope, 50 feet above the ground, just thinking about what are the consequences if I fall. I think right now that's what they're dealing with. Just all the pressure, the weight of, the playoffs and what the fans would want. They got to find a way to just play free and play hockey and not think about what else is going on around it.
Frankie, Martin St. Louis did talk about how this was such a great experience for the team. And I think, if I wasn't reading too much between the lines, I think he means either way. Obviously, he wants to make it into the playoffs, but what can this team take away from this experience if it is a heartbreaker, if it is you miss getting into the playoffs by 1 point, but sometimes these things can be very impactful down the line, even if it's painful in the moment.
I think what you take away is how hard it is, like how hard it is to win on a consistent basis, how hard it is to make the playoffs, and things that maybe you take for granted if you're someone else, just because you might look around the league and say, well, that team's in the playoffs every year, but it's hard to get there every single year. And so it would be so rotten if they came all this way and had multiple chances to clinch it and eventually didn't get the job done. And it wouldn't have been that they lost this playoff spot to a team like the New York Rangers, who won the President's Trophy last year, and maybe would have thought, okay, like at some point they're just going to put it together and we might be outgunned, or, we're out of our element. You're not out of your element. Like it's Columbus, who's, basically in the same boat as you. The term house money has been thrown around a lot recently in regards to Montreal. Columbus is house money as well. So it would feel even more rotten if you lost this spot to a team that was, just basically your peer in some ways. And so it is a lesson regardless of which way it goes. Like if they get into the playoffs, they're going to see how, like Suzuki, Caulfield, those guys have been there, right? But there's going to be a whole group that says, wow, it's hard to do this and it's hard to win. Whether that happens in the first round or game 82, but it is going to sting so much more if that happens for them, after game 82 and they're not going to the dance. But the lesson, I think that the takeaway is still the same regardless.
Frankie, it's not just the hallmark of a young team, but when as a team it takes you 3, 4, 5, 6 games to learn something. What does that say about the team? Like they've gone on extended winning streaks, they've gone on extended losing streaks recently. It has been, their starts were really bad. Now, it's the kind of the third bite at the apple to try and clinch. They can't do that. Like, what is the hallmarks of a team that kind of has to experience something over and over and over again before it finally gets through?
Well, I mean, they're still a young team. Like the average age for Montreal is around 26 years old, and the NHL average is 28. And so, they're still a young group. They're still trying to, establish their presence in the Atlantic Division, their presence in the Eastern Conference. And, I think this group has improved a lot in such a short period of time. So there's been a lot of ups and downs with them. But I don't think this is an indictment on them if they don't get it done. I think this is still, I think it would sting. And we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. Like we don't know what's going to happen. But if this is the case where they have all these chances to clinch and they don't do it, it's going to suck. It's going to sting. But I think when you kind of step back, you'll look at it and say, boy, this team improved a ton. Lane Hudson arrived. Nick Suzuki established himself as a top flight centerman in the NHL. Cole Caulfield found his scoring touch again. Like there's going to be more positives. And I think what happens after that is the expectation is going to be there next year to put themselves right back in this situation. So if next year they show up and it's like, hey, you're near the bottom of the standings again to start the season, I think that's when you kind of have the talk about, okay, what does it say about this group? But I think for now they've been in this battle desperation mode, the fatigue of the season. Like there's a lot of elements, and they've been a very scrappy, resilient team. But I think we're probably a little bit ahead of the, we're not quite at the, what does it say about this group conversation for me yet anyways. I don't think, I think there's way more positives to take out of this year than negatives.
I think if you told us in November that we'd be in this situation, we'd take it any day of the week. So, again, we're in the situation we're in now, but we're in a good spot. We still control our own fate. So, we're not gonna. Again, we're gonna go in tomorrow, different team, different mindset. It'll be fun. We'll be ready to go.
Caden Gooley speaking today, Frankie, and there is a rather huge game in about 2+ hours between Columbus and Philadelphia in Philly. The Flyers have been a different team under Brad Shaw. They're 5-2. Both those losses have been 1-goal losses, one to the Canadiens, the other in overtime to Ottawa. It's their final home game of the season. Columbus, I mean, it's a fantastic run here down the stretch. They got a goalie who not that long ago was in the ECHL. He played 4 games in 5 nights. It'll be 5-7 tonight for Greaves. Would you be surprised if Columbus got taken care of by the Flyers tonight?
I wouldn't be surprised. Philly's played well. Philly's that team that, in a weird way, you don't want to see at this time of year because everyone's just playing free after the coaching change, and there's no pressure on them to do anything. And the game's in Philadelphia tonight, and Columbus's away record has not been good. They're 10 games below 500 on the road this year. They've been fantastic at home, and they're getting the opposite of what they got with the Washington Capitals over the weekend, where Washington, very good team, not playing well right now, 3-6-1 in their last 10. They've lost a couple in a row, sitting guys out because they want to make sure they're ready for the playoffs. They're getting the opposite. They're getting guys that want to finish the season on a high note, guys that want to leave a good impression with their coach and general manager, with the organization, guys that realize this is their last showing for all, whatever pro scouts might be in the building, because playoffs start and you're out of sight, out of mind. So I think from a lot of the individuals' perspectives in Philadelphia, there's motivating factors for them, but they don't have the pressure, the team pressure that everyone is feeling, that energy that you're around. And the same pressure that Montreal was feeling against Chicago, that's the pressure that Columbus is going to be feeling. And Columbus has been a weird team because they've been streaky. And now they've won 4 in a row. So are they going to push it to 5? They're going to push it to 6? Or are we going to see them, feel the same pressure that Montreal had? Because there was a moment there where Columbus was streaking in the wrong way for quite a while. So I wouldn't be surprised if Philadelphia won the game. But Montreal is now in a position where they're hoping that someone else kind of does them a favor, and that's not exactly where they wanted to be at this point, considering all the chances they had to clinch this.
And again, it's not enough for Columbus to win in Philadelphia in overtime tonight. They have to do it in regulation. Correct. Otherwise they are done and the Canadiens clinch.
Yeah.
Frankie, I said last night on the postgame show, and I think it speaks a lot to if you've watched the Montreal Canadiens for the majority of my life at 34 years old, that it took 3 periods for me to say Ivan Demidov is the most spectacular offensive player that I've seen play, which I think speaks a lot to the organization. And I thought I was getting carried away until I saw this tweet from your colleague, Mr. Mike Johnson. Try not to be too hyperbolic, but there's been as many clean plays and effortless moves by Demidov through 40 minutes as you see from the best players when they're having a good game. He's unreal, giving Kaprizov vibes right now. So that's, again, I'm trying not to get too caught up, and yet I do understand if you have eyes watching him play last night, how you can get caught up in all of it. What did you make of just the amount of skill we saw from him last night?
Unbelievable. Totally as advertised, and really shifty with the puck. And similar in a way, when we watch Hudson play, how many times in a game he gets you to bite on a shoulder fake or a head fake, super deceptive and silky that way. And right away you're like, oh, Demidov's got that too. He's getting NHL guys to bite on things that you're like, man, that was really well done. And the Kaprizov thing is interesting because it's so, you watch it and you're like, I could totally see that. There is the way he skates with the wide base, and even the way he kind of holds his stick and the way he tapes it. There's a lot of shades of Kirill Kaprizov with the way he kind of maneuvers himself on the ice. But I think it tells you so much about this guy that, night one, he is beating guys one-on-one in the NHL, best players in the world. Obviously still would be jet lagged coming over from Russia, having to get used to things. And how about this? This is something that flies under the radar, I think, with Demidov's game last night. The goal that he scored, that is a set play. And I've seen that setup breakout for years. When I was in the league, I had John Tortorella as a coach. That was like his favorite set breakout that he did, where one forward, he goes like way up high, like Armia did, and then he kind of parks himself like between the red line and the blue line. And the other players on the ice, whether it's two wingers or a winger, a centerman, they swing and they get a ton of speed. And the objective is for the defenseman to pass it to Armia, and he's either going to like tip it either way, or he's just going to deflect it into the zone. So now you're just 200 feet from your own net. And Demidov, he runs it perfectly. And I'm thinking, well, he just learned that today, or yesterday. And he never really got to practice that, because that's something where if you're a player and you show up to a team, you go over like the whiteboard with the assistant coach. It's like, okay, here's how we forecheck. Here's how we defend. Here's a couple things that we do. And here's a setup breakout. And they don't want to throw too much at you. But he obviously realized that and ran it perfectly and gets rewarded with the goal. So not only was he super skilled, I think he showed how quickly he can adapt to things, and that was something that stuck out for me.
So Frankie, what's your response to the people that are jumping on our text line today, being like, yeah, Demidov's good, but he doesn't back check. He wasn't good on defense, and he
better back check, because that was not a good look on the one goal. Like, he completely stopped skating and had the straight legs going. But it's not like I'm just gonna or anyone's gonna give him a hall pass on that. Like, that's obviously something he's gonna have to do, and that's something that will get addressed for sure. But that's not my takeaway from the game. That's not what defines him coming out of the game. That's just, whatever it was. Didn't realize that he had to skate all the way back, or tired, whatever the case may be. Can't happen again for sure. But he did a lot more good in the game, and that shouldn't be, what we remember or what we take away, although that is something that he should not have in his game going forward. Because if that was anyone else, if that was Patrick Laine, that would have been everywhere on Twitter, and every fan base would be goofing on it.
Marty St. Louis has already said, as he said prior to his debut last night, that Demidov will be on the second power play unit. I think that was a 2 for 33 power play drought when Slafkovsky finally scored with the same unit being intact. They have an opportunity. I mean, it's a moot point, obviously, if Columbus can't keep going tonight in Philadelphia. But if the game means something tomorrow in Carolina, I mean, I like Patrick Laine, but it's not. He seems to have, like, when was the last time we even saw him take a one-timer on that power play? In addition to turning pucks over along the boards. Yeah,
it's an interesting point, right? Because for me, there's two guys that you would consider taking off the unit. It's Laine or it's Slafkovsky. But it's hard to justify taking a guy off the power play who's second in the NHL in power play goals and can just do it with a shot. And then the other thing I would say to that is, well, if he's gone this long without that, maybe he's due, because he does it so often. So I understand, and I think the Hudson thing that we saw this year, where he was on the second unit for as long as he was, and eventually he got to the first unit, it's just they don't have that kind of runway to ease him in. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Demidov hit the second or hit the first power play unit at some point. I would be surprised if we saw him start the game that way against Carolina if Columbus wins tonight against Philadelphia. But you bring up a good point, because there are times, and I think they've maybe tried to do this now, where I think Laine, of course, he's targeted by the penalty kill, but I think there were times where he was killing plays by just taking shots from essentially the boards. And it looked to me that it was more, okay, don't take it when you're that outside because you're just killing our possession. But now we're seeing him shoot less. And so now, Laine's got to find a way, and the players on the ice have to find a way to maybe move around a little bit to see if they can get him some looks. But that's what he is. That's what he's good at. And we'll see how they decide to play it out. But there's no doubt that Demidov is going to be a fixture on the first power play unit at some point in the near future for this team, and likely for a very long time, and will have a significant impact in that role.
Frankie, outstanding job on Canadiens telecasts with Brian Mudryk this season. It was a lot of fun watching and listening to you guys, and enjoy tonight, enjoy the weekend. I hope you get to enjoy tomorrow's Canadiens-Carolina game, and we'll do it again next Tuesday ahead of the playoffs.
You know what? Thank you guys so much. It was such a pleasure doing the telecast. A lot of hard work by our crew behind the scenes making it happen, and thank you to all the fans who tuned in. You're the reason why we do it, and it was a pleasure. So thank you guys. We'll talk soon.